Hi everyone and welcome back. In this video we are going to build this kind of application, player manager application you can say. We are going to have a simple form where you can add the player information. When you add the player, that player will be added in this particular list. And here you can add and remove the points which you are going to assign to the player. A very simple application, but we are going to look into a different concepts of Svelte JS in this example. So we are going to start from very basic. This is our Svelte app.svelte component. Here what we are going to do, let's remove the button component. Here inside we are going to have the default list of players. You can see the existing players which has a name, and points we can assign. This is a numeric. Similarly we have like a lot of other players. Okay, these are the points, and we already have these two other components in the whole app. Like one is a player component which will render the player card, and another is the list of all the players. So we can import player component from player.svelte, and there is going to be another component which will provide us the form using which we can add the new player. And we can create these two files with just empty data for now. Inside this div we are going to have these components. One is the add player component, which will render some kind of a form, and then we will do the if else kind of conditional rendering. If we got the players, if you can say the players dot length, if that is equal to 0, that means we don't have any player. No players. And here we can do if else, right? So if this is true, then we are good. Otherwise we are going to look into the else part. That means the player has the length, right? And we will just complete this if else block. First is else, and then this is if. Oh, sorry, there is no else. We are going to write for each block. So if else if, and inside this we know that we are going to have for each. I mean, we are going to iterate onto all the elements. So each players as player, single iteration, and this is how we need to close each. And inside this we can render the player component, and we need to pass the name of the player, which is player.name, the points, player.points, and we are going to have a event which will help us to remove the player from this list that we will add later. That will be a component event coming from the player component. Okay, so player is going to have these properties as a props. We are going to pass name and points, player.points and player.name we are rendering. So we are just running a loop and we are trying to render. Okay, now first let's build a player component. In player component we are passing these two props, which is player name and the player points. So we can create a simple player component, a player component will expose, we will be receiving these two props. So I will just copy the code from app.svelte and just use the same. Inside script, what we need to do? We need to first create two variables. We'll import these things later. So we are going to import export let name because we are receiving these props. Let name, export let points, and then we can write the HTML for this, like what all things we are going to render for the component. So we are going to render the player card component, and here we can simply render what will be the name of the player. So we can render that. So first is the name. Okay, this is the player card, and here we are going to have different actions. Okay, you can also delete a particular player, so we can have button, and here you can do on click. Whenever you do click, we are going to call on delete method. So there can be a simple X icon which we are going to use to delete, and rest you can add some classes, something like that. Okay, and we can also render the points which this component is getting. I mean, this particular player is getting. This is points. So basic example we can think about this. And we have on click, so on delete function we have to define in our script. This is going to send an action, this is going to send an event to the parent component because we want to delete this particular player from the list. So we are going to create a dispatcher event, right? So we have to import this, create dispatcher event, and we can dispatch this particular event on delete. We can just get the name. Okay, and I can simply say dispatch. And what is the action, what is the event we wanted to dispatch? Remove player. Remove player, and the data which you are going to pass is just a name of the player. Now we need to handle this remove player at the parent component, which is app Svelte JS, and here on remove player handle remove. This is the method we are going to call at the parent component, and we will define this method. Handle remove will just remove this based on the name, so we can just do a simple filter because I think name is unique, and we can just run simple filter and reassign the players with the updated value. So this is simple function remove handle remove, and we already have the players. We can just simply do the players.filter, a simple filter, and based on e.details, this is the event. From this we are getting these values, and we can just simply do the players.filter. If player.name is matching with e.detail, do not return that. So it will just filter out that particular, it will exclude that particular name and keep the rest of them. So we are doing the reactive assignment, so the players will get updated. Similarly, there can be another function from another component, which is add player. Function add player, and it's like we are going to get this new player from the child from the event component event. Same we have received here e.player e.detail. Similarly, we are going to receive this from the child component e.detail, and this will be an object. So we can just reassign the players. Okay, this is the existing players I have, and this is the new player. I am adding. This is again the reactive assignment, so it will rebuild. It will refresh the component and it will try to show the updated list of players. Now add players. Add player is just going to be a simple form component. We are going to, because we are going to initialize the form with default value. So let player has, let's say, name is empty and points are 0, and we are going to return, we are going to have HTML with the form, and we will do on submit, and we will bind the properties with this form, and we have on submit method. There we are going to call the event on submit that is going to dispatch the event to the parent component. Copy the event dispatcher, create event dispatcher, and you can dispatch the event, and that event should contains the player object name, payload. So here we are going to dispatch add player, and the object you are going to send is the player object. And once that is done, you reset the player value, and you can make the name again empty, and the points again will be 0. A simple form. So here we can just create this simple form with the property bindings. I will just replace this form with the property binding. This is simple form with a grid. We can just do this, and here we are doing the binding. This form is doing binding with this object bind value. If I show you bind value with the players.point, and then there is a button. So when you click on to this button, what is happening? You are calling the on submit method, and that is triggering the add player event. It's sending the add player component event to the parent component with this player object. Okay, this player object is already, we have done the two-way data binding, so whatever you are typing in this text fields, that will be updated, and when you submit this form, we are sending this add player event to the parent component. So again we go to the app Svelte component and see how to deal with this add player event. So in the app Svelte.js, so we are rendering add player, and here on add player we can add this method add player, and this method is already there, which is adding the player. Okay, so this is how it is working. Now we can test this. When I click on add player, when I click default, okay, e.detail, okay, I missed the argument on the app.svelte. So e.player, there should be our argument. E.detail, we got the existing player and the new player. Okay, now this should work. I will just enter the values. So this is just a simple setup. The only objective of this example is just to understand how the component communicates, how we iterate on to the elements we have, how we can send the component events from child component to the parent component, how we write the DOM events, how we do the property binding. It's like two-way data binding we are doing in this add player form, and how we are passing the data as a profs, and how we are doing the conditional rendering, how we are doing this if else thing to make it required all the things, so it is able to add the new player. So that's it. So we have covered these two different examples. One is the player management app, and another app is the GitHub search. These both the examples, when you write by yourself, will help you to understand the core concept, core syntax of the Svelte JS, how it is working and all these things. Now what we are going to do is we are going to see the how we can integrate the Svelte JS with the APIs. We will deep down more into the components, the lifecycle hooks, and how we can use the store in the Svelte JS app. And now we started use Svelte JS for other different applications, like the big applications we are writing in React, how we can do all those things with the simple Svelte JS. There are other concepts like working with slots, working with the with the stores in Svelte JS, all those concepts I will be covering in the coming sessions.